Hey everybody, it's JPC again, and this is episode number 17, back in my day. It's time for another lore drop, um, give or take a better term. I'm going to talk about age today. I had somebody once say that thought it would be interesting for me to discuss my perspective on dealing with age. So yeah, let's do that. Obviously, caveats. This is my perspective. I'm sure that people have much better perspectives than I do. I can guarantee you, anybody who's older than me has a very different perspective than I do, and anyone who's younger than me has a different perspective as well. Um, my life has been the specifics of my life, and so obviously going to say that I don't speak for every 41-year-old out there, um, or anyone else. So normal caveats, but putting it out there that this is how I feel and what I've, I guess, noticed through those things. I told a story in one of my blogs, which is kind of the first time that I had been told by a doctor directionally that I'm not getting any younger. The story is basically I tore my knee up playing ultimate frisbee. I was on a club team in Dallas Fort Worth, and we were at a practice. It's at actually the beginning of the season, and I landed awkwardly, trying to jump up and catch a frisbee in the air or whatever. And the way that I landed, my ankle was by my ear. So just imagine how crumbled everything went. But I jumped into the air, so I don't know how high I jumped or whatever, but high enough that the way that I landed, that um, my ankle caught the ground, and I was already falling kind of backwards because of what kind of had driven me to fall, and yeah, so I landed there. I was able to stand up. I was able to walk. Everything was tender, and I was like, okay, maybe this isn't that bad. And there was a guy in our team who is an older gentleman who's helping coach us, and he kind of like mumbled like, that shit didn't look good. So I heard him say it, but I kind of ignored it because I was able to walk on it a little bit. Um, I wasn't able to sleep that night because when I was laying there, I was laying on my back, and that was my left leg. I went to roll to my right, and just the way that my knee moved within, sorry, my leg, right? How do I say this? My femur moved within the kind of joint that the knee is, the way that it put pressure on my MCL just woke me right up. Like it was like lightning went through my body, and so I was like, okay, like I'm definitely going to the doctor, right? So my wife makes a joke that I'm kind of like that typical guy. It's fine, I don't need to go to the doctor for it. And she was like, yeah, when he kind of woke up the next morning and said, I needed to go to the doctor. She's like, "Oh, this must really be bad," and it was. So, and for anyone who didn't read the story, so essentially, I'm at the doctor's office, and um, he kind of comes in and he's talking to me about the results of the MRI or whatever we did. I can't even remember. Um, X-ray maybe, just I don't know. I can't remember. Um, I'm like 26, 27. My wife is my fiance at the time, so we still hadn't gotten married. We were close to it. Actually, we're talking about that. It may have been after the marriage, but after the wedding. But I think it was before. We'll confirm it. Pointless, piece of history in all reality. It was sometime in my late 20s, and the doctor was looking at it. He's like, "Yeah, you definitely tore your MCL." And I knew about MCL because my wife had actually just torn hers playing softball, the month before, and so I knew that okay, this is definitely going to heal on its own. I just have to put the brace on and blah blah blah. But I was hoping to not need to do surgery, and the way that I landed, I thought my ACL possibly was compromised. But he said, no, it's actually your PCL, which is the ligament kind of in the back of the knee. Um, and I was like, oh. do I need surgery for that? Because I didn't even consider that it was one of the other, LCL, PCL, whatever. I just immediately thought it was the ACL based off of the way that I landed. And he goes, well, you don't play contact sports. And at your age, you can survive with a compromised PCL. And this was the first time a doctor had said the words at your age to me. Again, I'm late 20s, so, I'm obviously not 21. And due to the nature of like, I'm a full time employee and I just play, these kind of club sports for fun on the weekends, and I practice once a week, whatever, and they're non-contact. He was kind of specific about that. Um, Basically, yeah, he kind of says at your age, you can survive with a compromised PCL. And I was shocked. Like, what do you mean at my age? Like, excuse me, sir. I am a young buck. And yeah, so I kind of tell that story because there's just something that's going to happen. Like, there's going to be one day that somebody's going to remind you that you're not considered young anymore. That's what the purpose of that story really was, from my perspective, at least, with it. So I want to talk about, with that story, a couple of things. The first thing is milestones. So I assume that the person who asked me the question about, or I guess made the comment about talking about dealing with age, was a younger person who was thinking about the fact that maybe they're in their 20s and they're about to be 30. Oh no, that's scary. Okay, so milestones, right? 30, 40, 50, they mean nothing, right? The joke of older people saying that age is just a number, that's true. Age is just a number. And to kind of put that into perspective, the day before you turn 30, you're 29 and 364 days or whatever, you don't feel any different the very next day. Same with when you turn 13, right? Because when people are like, oh, I'm about to be a teenager, well, you don't feel different from 12 and 1 day away to 13. You don't feel different 20 and 1 day away from 21. So don't worry about the milestones. The milestones are just something that young people do to make fun of old people, and something that old people use to make fun of young people. They don't mean anything. As a 40-year-old, all you 20-year-olds are wonderful people, and I wasn't going to say anything mean to the contrary. It's very specific to, or very important to kind of remember that. Stop worrying about turning 30. Stop worrying about having a 3 as the first digit in your age. It does not matter. I don't feel any different at 41 than I felt at 35. I'm 100% like not cap, no capping on that. Sorry, I showed my age there. I don't feel different than when I was in my 20s, if I'm 100% honest. Yes, obviously my body is different. But that's because I haven't taken care of it, right? I had other priorities. I started to work. I have kids. I stopped doing the sports the way that I was playing before. I was in probably the best shape of my life at 33, doing the workouts and the routines that we were doing for our ultimate team. I think it was 33 or so. So stop worrying about those milestones. People use them as an excuse. We just went to a friend of ours' 40th birthday, right? And she was making a big deal about turning 40, and it's not a big deal, guys. People, it's not a big deal. Turning 30 is not a big deal. And it took me 30 something years to figure this out. So it's okay that you're thinking about it. It's okay that you're concerned about it. Everybody is, but it's not. I'll go back to something I said as one of the first two podcasts, I think, the Sorites paradox, the paradox of the heap. 1 day doesn't make you old. 1 week doesn't make you old. If you go backwards, you're not young just because you're 1 day younger than me or 1 week younger than me. It's over time. And if you're not spending every day trying to become better, then you're aging incorrectly. And so you should feel different over time. You should feel, right? You should be a different person tomorrow than you are today, which means you should be a significantly different person next year than you are today. If you look back, that should be the case for looking at who you were in the past as well. So it's really a lesson in not thinking about the age and thinking about who you are as a person. And as a matter of fact, I would say that if you still have a, no offense to 21-year-olds, but if you still think like a 21-year-old when you're in your 30s, shame on you. You should have a much different perspective on things. You should have a much different idea of accountability and responsibility, regardless of where you are in life. And your experiences should drive that. So you should be excited about getting older. I feel much, much better about who I am today than I ever did in my 20s. Um, and that's not because like my life was bad or worse or horrible or any of that stuff. It's just I know so much more and I don't feel physically different due to age. I feel physically different because I'm a lazy MFer who stopped working out and doesn't eat properly, right? So work out, eat properly, and you'll still feel 21 in the body into your 40s. Now I'm not 50 yet, so I assume that things will change as you go into that perspective, but they should. It's wear and tear. You're going to feel much older, but if you put your body through hell in your 20s, you're going to feel old at 30. So it's really not about the age, and it's about what you do to your body. Let's see. I want to talk about number 2. Yeah, let's talk about facing morality. No, you know what? I want to do that last. Embracing wisdom and experience. I kind of talked a little bit about this, but um, there's one thing I hated in my youth, which was when my mother would say, "You'll understand when you get older." Um, I hated it because I knew it was true, but I also hated it because if you are unable to explain it to me, this is my perspective. If you're unable to explain it to me, then I think that you lack the understanding of it yourself. And yeah, sure, the idea that you'll understand when you have the experience is much different than you'll just get it when you get older. I can explain to my kids that a parent's love is vastly different than a child's love, right? Children are selfish. They are at their core. They want, me, 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 me. And as a teenager in high school, I got that. I totally understood that my job as a child was not to take care of my parents at that time, and their job as parents were to put me first. Right, that's the responsibility of a parent, and I think that that's something that's important to emphasize with age is you do get that experience and that wisdom. And I think that if you really understand it, you can explain it to even an 8-year-old. Maybe not too much lower than that, but that's on the cusp there. But I think that there's a lot of value in wanting those experiences and understanding those things. I remember a story. I don't remember who told me this, but it's not about age. But there was an incident within their work, and there was a conversation with, I think it was a customer, and the the customer had kids, and they were trying to deal with something that had happened, and they asked the person that I know, and again I can't remember who this was, so it was a friend of mine, and they said, "Do you have kids?" And my friend was like, "No, I don't." And the customer was like, "Then how can you possibly understand?" Um, I think that I think that that's important as a young person, a person who doesn't have the experience of another person, to recognize that those experiences are extremely important. But that again goes beyond age. I've never had cancer. I cannot talk to somebody about cancer, right? I've never had a parent with Parkinson's, for example. I've never had a parent with Alzheimer's, right? So outside of age, that's true too. And I think that we take this age thing and we put it aside and say, well, it's not something that falls into that same category. It really is, but it's about knowledge and learning and understanding. And I think there's a lot, again, value in taking a moment to recognize those things. On the opposite side of that, I want to talk about getting older and how beneficial teaching somebody is, with the idea that don't tell people that you don't want them to do what you've done, right? So let's talk about parents, for example. My mom used to tell me this as well. You should be better than me. I've said that to my kids. You should be better than me. Um, that's a hard lesson to teach somebody if they don't have the experience. You preventing them from having the experience is not teaching. Um, this gets really, really tricky and really, really hard. I obviously don't want my kid to go and test cocaine because I know it's bad and he has never experienced it. Right? Like I never did any drugs like that, so also don't know what it's like to do them. So I can't speak to addiction, obviously, but I can speak to the fear of addiction. And if I can't instill the fear of addiction in my child, then I don't obviously understand it well enough. And I need somebody to help me with that. So this kind of got off on a weird tangent, but age shouldn't be uh, an excuse to say you'll understand when you get older. It also shouldn't be an excuse to prevent somebody from doing something that you yourself made the mistake of. Um, this gets very tricky. And I think that I would never tell somebody how to parent. I think that everybody has their own style, is going to have their own style. And if they're interested in doing things differently, they'll seek those questions out. But as a young person who's nowhere close to having kids or getting into that kind of realm of things, I want you to think about that as you're getting older and as you start to form families and relationships and whatnot. Don't do it because I did it is a really, really slippery slope. I made a joke once about, so in Texas they teach. Yeah, I'm having telling this whole thing with little PC in the background. He's got headphones on, so he can't hear me talk. Really, yeah. Um, they teach abstinence. They don't teach safe sex, right? And I think that's kind of changing a little bit and whatnot. But this weird perspective I had this kind of like weird perspective on it. If you talk about something that's exciting, again, like sex, if you talk about something that's exciting and you tell them like, oh, it's wonderful, it's this, it's great, it's that, but don't do it, don't talk about it, don't look for information or education on it, what you form, for lack of a better word, which I know this is a very, very weird word, but what you form almost is a fetish. It's an exciting thing that nobody wants to talk about. It's an exciting thing that I can't share with other people. It's an exciting thing that I can't talk to people who probably should teach me about. And I I think you create those scenarios again, for lack of a better word, but you create little fetishes, and your kids aren't going to tell you about them, or your friends aren't going to tell you about them, or you yourself are not going to talk about them because there's something exciting about them. Everybody will tell you it's a great, wonderful thing to do X, Y, or Z, but we can't talk about it. It's a great, wonderful thing, but you can't experience it or you can't look for better information. And I think that kind of comes from this idea that don't do the things that I did. Well, if you did them and you're fine, why can't I? So again, they kind of got off on a weird tangent there for this kind of segment, but I think that that's important to recognize and kind of ask yourself, how do you want to approach those things or how do you want to change those things? And every day, my kids get older and I know that my perspective and my conversations in my moments impact them just as much as they do me. So if I'm going to be different tomorrow than I am today, I also want my kids to be different tomorrow than they are today, but in a positive way. So everything I do does impact them. Like me talking about fetishes with them in the office. Again, their headphones are on, so can't hear anything. The last thing I was going to talk about, number 3, is morality and existentialism. I wouldn't say that, at least up to this point in my 40s, early 40s, that I have thought more about death than um, I had before. I wouldn't say that I think about it less either, but you do probably, if you've done it in your past, you'll do it just as much in that in your in the future and in your old age. Um, but if you don't, then it's probably not going to impact you as much. But I will say, for those of you, I recommend this to some people. But 4,000 Weeks is a book by Oliver Burkeman. And it's kind of a time management, atomic habit style book in all reality. But the perspective that he put on his explanation and kind of his stories and his direction had a bit of a morality twist to it. So 4,000 weeks is directionally, it's about 80 years. It's about 80 years, and that's the 77, 75 is like the average life expectancy or whatever, and it's kind of where I assume he was going with the 4,000 weeks. So I got to the point, I want to say it was probably 5-ish years ago. It was, maybe it was, yeah, it was after little PC was born. And I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I haven't really done anything significant with my life. Like, and I don't regret my life at all. I love what I've done. I love my past. I love everything that has gotten me to this point. If I change anything in my past, I don't have my son and my daughter. I don't have my wife. I don't have uh this. I don't have a friendship with a talking banana on the internet, right? You don't have those things. So I love where my life is today. So then I physically, mentally, emotionally cannot regret my past. Um, that's my perspective. Again, I don't hope other people don't regret their past either, but putting those things into perspective. But every single week that I don't do something, I lose. And 4,000 is a lot until you hit 40 and you go, well, that's halfway done. Now I only have 2,000 weeks. And by the time I hit 60, I'm only going to have 1,000 weeks, give or take, right? And if you kind of put it into that kind of perspective, it really weighs on you doing things every single week. That also means spending time with my kids. That also means making sure that I do the right things for my health so that I can be around when they have their kids. Um, your perspective of what's important really, really starts to change. I think everyone's kind of aware of that. I don't know that I'm telling you something that different in all reality, but putting it into a finite number of weeks is kind of important. Um, every week you don't do something, you can say I could just do that next week. You lost a week. Days feel small. Weeks start to feel impactful, especially when you cut it in half and you only have 2,000 left down that path. Um, I don't think that I think about this in a way that is, oh, I need to enjoy life more or I need to necessarily do more or get more done now. I think that was something I was thinking about in the past, but now it's about what I'm missing. Now it's about when I let today go by. I was talking to some people on my premier team today that my daughter had a soccer game this morning, and I I personally can't go to my daughter's soccer game. Um, she's about to turn 6. Like she's a month away from turning 6. And when she is, for lack of a better term, lollygagging in her soccer game, I get upset about it. And it's a personality thing. I don't believe in doing something and not trying your best, specifically around competition. And I can't register in my brain that she's 6 or about not even 6, right? Caveat, not even 6. And I can't register that in my brain. You're my offspring, and I expect you to go out and try hard. I want you to have fun, but I want you to have fun trying, right? That's the message that I kind of always say. And I tell her, I don't care if you score goals. I don't care if you guys win. I don't care if you get scored on. I don't care about any of that stuff, but you will try hard when you're out there. And when I see her not, because again, she just doesn't care, I actually get upset about it. And the number of times that I've said her name in like dad tone at a soccer game and had parents kind of look over at me is yeah, special. So I don't go to the games, but where the games are, I actually can watch them on an app. So I can see her play, I can watch her play. And when I yell, I'm yelling at a screen and not specifically at her. I'm trying to be better about that. And I'm not using this as an excuse to not fix it, but I am finding a way to not put my personal desire for improvement on a 5-year-old. And uh, yeah, I guess as a going into that I'm not losing those things, but I am recognizing that I'm not there, and I have to remind her that I watched after the fact and tell her you did a good job here. Hey, this was great, and I can get all the negative stuff out separately. So I'm finding different ways to accomplish the not missing things while also not creating a bad scenario for my daughter, because I want her to like soccer. I want her to enjoy playing sports. Um, and we're figuring that out. That's something that me, even at 41, hasn't figured out how to take my personal perspective out of a scenario and let my kids play the game that they're playing without interruption. I think anybody who heard Little PC play Valorant during the charity stream, I did it to him too. I was asking him, why are you going? Why are you pushing that? Come over here. You got to come over. And I'm like trying to like do it the right way, do it the right way, do it the right way. And it's not conducive to fun. It's also not conducive to learning. And uh, I have to find ways to not do that so that I don't miss out. I don't create a bad scenario while also not missing out on the experience. Um, so, if I talk about kind of making sure that my kids have me there now. That yeah, yeah. Sorry, didn't get emotional there talking about that. All right, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not. I'm done with the aging thing. Stop worrying about it. Age is just a number. Take care of your body. Take care of your friends. Take care of your family, and you won't feel different at 30 than you do at 25. You won't feel different at 40 than you do at 21. Um, I can promise you that because that's how I feel. And if I took care of my body, I guarantee I could throw a football over those mountains. That's a Napoleon Dynamite joke for those of you that didn't get it. Thank you all for hanging out. I am doing next week. I think we're gonna do teamwork, a teamwork one, or a learning mentality, like a growth mentality one. I'll figure out one of the two. We'll do that next week, and we'll keep pushing along. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you for listening to me talk to you about dealing with age, and I hope it was enjoyable. Good luck in your games, gamers. Talk to you later.